Are we live yet? Ooh.
Hello, everyone.
Hi there. How are you? It's Kath here.
And Sarah. And I think we've got quite a few new people, Kath. I was looking through the list of folks who'd registered, and there's a lot of names that I noticed have not joined us for these Ask Me Anythings in the past. So that's exciting. And we've been doing these. What is this? This is our third one that we've done.
I think so. Yeah.
I don't remember. So we've been doing these every month. It's been sort of a fun little, I don't know, experiment, because we're always doing experiments. And basically we are doing these very informal Q&As. There's no, pitch or presentation or anything like that. It's really just a way for people to get, if they have questions, get them answered. Just find out if, there's resources out there with their, what they're thinking about. Last month, we talked about Squarespace 7.1, which is the new platform on Squarespace. The previous month, we didn't really even have a theme. This month, we're going to talk about email newsletters.
Yes.
Woohoo! This is one of my favorite subjects.
Yes. And you've been doing so many little experiments this year. I started a little bit in May, so I'm kind of excited to sort of share that and also answer questions.
Yeah, and to create some context, I think it's probably good if we both kind of talk a little bit about our experience with newsletters. And Kath, I don't know if you want to start, or I can.
Sure. Well, I'll keep it really quick. So since I started writing a newsletter because I took an online marketing course, and it was all newsletters, you need a newsletter, right? But it was really about like really getting tons and tons of signups and selling constantly. And I couldn't do it. So after a couple of years of just sort of writing a newsletter about how to use Squarespace and basically linking over to my blog mostly, I stopped for about, I don't even know now, like everything is kind of mushing together, but it felt like at least a year, but it might've been less. And when I decided to restart, I deleted almost my entire list, not everybody, but like I deleted the majority of them. I think when
GDPR, right? That was kind of what, because
I got that permission from maybe about half my list. They clicked the link that said yes to the GDPR.
Yeah, the double opt-in, and that's a term that you probably know about. We can talk about what that means.
I still have double opt-in. So when people sign up for my list, they're not actually on my email list until they've confirmed, they've gone to their inbox, seen that confirmation email from me, and click confirm. And once they click confirm, then they're on my list. So I bet you I can see who's not signing up, but I actually haven't seen that anywhere. Anyway, so back to so when I decided to restart my list, I think it was this time last year, around this time.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Because GDPR was like May of 2018. So yeah, it would have been a good year. I basically deleted everyone that hadn't clicked the GDPR thing, and so kept a very small list. It was less than 100 by that point. And started from scratch and just sort of reintroduced myself and said, "Hey, I'm back." And I think a couple of people unsubscribed, but most people stuck around, and then my list slowly grew. But in terms of my list doubling in size, that has started since about April, May of this year, where I started taking it more seriously, writing a little bit more than once a month, and really changing how I talk about working in Squarespace has made a big difference. I've noticed people replying to my emails they never did before. It was more like just, oh, she's blogging again, I guess. So more people are replying, more people are signing up and sticking around. And then I made a bunch of tweaks this month, because that's, in our membership, we've been practicing, testing out, tweaking things in building a list. So I've been changing things on my website to see what would happen. And my list has really increased in the last 2.5, 3 weeks, like significantly. So those little tweaks have helped a lot. So, and so that's on list building side, but in terms of what I'm writing, I've really developed a point of view in my writing. I'm trying to change how I talk about, having your own website and what you do with it, as opposed to how to do it, right? So that's sort of what's changed in my own writing. And I think people are resonating with that. So, and more people are unsubscribing as well. So more people are joining, but when I write in the way that I write now, I notice that more people are unsubscribing, which is fine, right? But it's interesting.
So I think that's interesting, because that's something I think sometimes people freak out when they see they get unsubscribes, especially if they're, and I know I saw in the chat that there are a bunch of people who are like, I had a list and then I didn't know what to do with it, so I kind of quit. And I think that's something that you pay attention to those unsubscribes and you start to be like, oh my goodness, people keep unsubscribing, and what am I doing wrong? And the reality is you're not doing anything wrong.
No.
You just, either they don't need you anymore, so maybe they've outgrown the information, because your info, I think, is pretty, like, it's a very clear audience. It's that person.
It's the Squarespace DIYers and designers. Yeah.
DIY their website. They now are really, I think, in a place where they're like, oh, so I have a website. Now what? So those folks are either, so you've got those folks, and maybe they outgrow the information that you're providing, because you keep it very, very, clear, like you have a very clear person you're talking to. So maybe they've outgrown it. Maybe they don't like what you have to say. I mean, the reality is that what you have to say is a lot of times it comes down to, you've got to do some work here. And sometimes that's not what people are ready to hear. And that's fine too. So I always worry, because people fret about unsubscribes. I get unsubscribes every week when I send out my newsletter. Yeah. And I can tell you, I get between 4 to 6 every week who unsubscribe.
And I think that's based on numbers in general. Like I get 1, sometimes 0, and I'm like, okay, that didn't bother anyone. But yeah, I get 1 or 2.
The most unsubscribes I ever had. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
The most unsubscribes I ever had was my email about how your marketing didn't work because you didn't do it.
And that leads to the point,
far and away, like, that was the most unsubscribes. And it was very interesting to me, because the reality is that's probably the meanest I've ever been, because I'm not a particularly mean person. And I felt like I needed to say that extremely clearly, because I hear that over and over there. People will say, well, I wrote a blog post and I didn't get any traffic, so I never wrote another one. Yeah. And like, I can't, like, when I hear that, the answer is you need to do more of it. And that was something that, and I wanted, and I was, I think, pretty kind in the way I framed it, but I was really like, you can't quit. You need to keep working on this. And that clearly that was not a message that some people wanted to hear. And that's fine. Like, that's totally fine if you're not ready to hear some of that kind of stuff. So I don't fret over unsubscribes like some people do. I think that if people want to leave, they can always come back.
Yeah, and that's actually happened with me as well.
Happened to me a bunch.
Yeah. So that's my story. It's as I've developed a point of view, a stronger point of view in my newsletter. This is Sarah pushing me to do this, by the way.
I basically
more of a point of view and more of a why to use Squarespace as opposed to how to. Like, there's always the how to, but what you can do to make it work for you, that kind of stuff, and continuing to educate and really helping people do it themselves. I do have a goal. Eventually, some people will join our membership, or even go. My audience is not interested in design in a day, but who knows? Maybe 1 or 2 might be in the future. But yeah, just there is a sales goal in some aspects, but overall, it's mainly like educating and getting excited about how you can use Squarespace in an interesting way to improve your business, however you run your business.
And that could, I think actually you're selling yourself short, because that could actually lead to someone booking a training session. That could lead to someone joining, like you said, joining our membership. That could lead to, so I think it's just with you, it is a longer path, because they need to get to a certain point to where they're ready for those things.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of helping them get ready, which is sort of an interesting, it's sort of a different tactic.
You made an interesting point the other day about how people are going to get used to how I work and how I view things. And that's important for you too in your newsletter. So now we'll talk about your newsletter.
Yeah. So we can talk about newsletters a long time, just like our own experience. So I actually was pat myself on the back, was pretty smart about this newsletter thing in terms of I did start collecting email addresses a long time ago. And that was something that I didn't really know why I was doing it, except for I had this gut feeling it was a good idea because I actually had a pretty large in-person audience because I used to teach a lot of in-person workshops.
Right.
And because I wasn't the one handling like the registrations and the payment and stuff, so I didn't get those names. So I would literally pass around a note, like a yellow legal pad, and get people's email addresses so I could stay in touch with them. And so I would put them into I would literally then type them into my, at the time, MailChimp, which I don't care for now at all. And that was how I built my list. I'm not kidding. It was literally that. So that makes me sound really old. And so what I would do is my strategy. What's my strategy?
Mm-hmm. Strategy.
Not a strategy. So what I would do then is I would then send out an announcement when I was going to be doing another in-person thing.
Right.
And so I did that for a long time. And so that, and then once a month I'd send something out. And I tried a bunch of experiments. I tried, here's a roundup of links that I would send out once a month. Here's my most recent blog post. I tried tons and tons of different strategies. And frankly, they all pretty much sucked. So
and just it was, and that's going to happen, and that's okay.
Yeah, and because I was very nervous about doing, I don't know. I was very nervous. There was something about emailing people that seemed really scary, which is funny because I've always blogged up a storm. And so that was a really interesting experience. So then I kind of got in this rhythm where I sent like a once a month email that was like some info. Here's some interesting reading, maybe a case study about one of our clients. They were never very good.
Right.
But I slow and steady kind of built this little emailing list. And so once a month I was doing this. And then about, at this point, like a year and a half ago or so, I had a terrible convergence of like SEO things happen to me that I won't get into. But basically my search optimization tanked. Not my fault. External forces, which can happen.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I better start doing something. So I started writing more blog posts, and I was like, I have this mailing list. I was unhappy with using MailChimp. I think most people love using MailChimp. This is a Sarah thing. And I found, Kathy uses it and she's happy. Mm-hmm. And I found a platform that was going to work for me more effectively, which I use ConvertKit now, and I love it. And I was like, well, I'm just going to try sending out, basically, I had this thought where I post these blog posts that are pretty substantive, and they kind of go out to the world in a vague way. But in reality, who should be getting those first are the people who've actually said, yes, I want to subscribe to you. I want to hear from you. So what I started doing is like all of my best ideas for blog posts, I started, instead of immediately putting them on my website, I started sending them out as emails. And so that was sort of where this half-baked plan, because I'd read all the stuff Kath talked about, like all the stuff about building lists and all that. And I hated every single thing I read because it didn't feel authentic to what I was trying to say. It didn't feel I felt contrary to the way I talk about marketing. I didn't like it. And so I was like, I'm just going to make up my own strategy rather than doing what all these people say. And so I started basically every week, what I would have normally posted as a blog post, I wrote as my weekly email newsletter that went out on Fridays. And so that was how, and what something crazy started happening is more people started signing up. My list grew really fast. And people started hitting reply and talking to me in my inbox.
Yeah.
And that was really, really interesting. So, you fast forward to this, this sort of December, January, and pretty much all of our new clients since then have actually originated as email newsletter subscribers.
That's
and
really-
yeah, almost all of them, almost every single one. And what is really interesting is I kind of see this pattern where they sit on the list for 3 to 6 months and learn. And then when they go to inquire about doing a project, they have the language that I've been using over and over again when they talk about what they want to do. So it's not just that they are familiar with me and they feel comfortable with me, is that they actually have almost like a vocabulary that makes the communication very easy. And that's something I think people don't talk a lot about with email marketing, is how you can actually elevate the conversation with your audience. So, and then when you make a sale, when they buy something, when you have that, you are speaking the same language and you're not kind of hitting that friction just kind of goes away. And I think that's something that I talk to people about that a lot, because it is such a powerful thing, because it's not just about making a sale, it's making a really, really quality sale to someone.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And isn't part of that whole big online marketing have a gazillion people on your email list kind of thing? It's really works for the smaller scale one-on-one service-based businesses who are like, this doesn't make sense for me. And so,
well, and that's something else to keep in mind, is a lot of the stuff that's out there is really geared towards people who are selling kind of like info products or like sort of repeatable program type things. But I know a lot of the people that I can see the names in our chat here, a lot of these folks are working in more, I would say more like intense or intimate relationships with their clients or their customers, where they know exactly who their customers are. They know exactly who their client, like they don't need to sell 500 things every month. They need to sell 1 or 2. And so it's newsletters. I think a lot of the info we get are geared towards like, I'm trying to sell like 1,000 lipsticks.
Yeah. Which, if you are, there's tons of information out there that will tell you.
And I also think you can do it better than you are.
Well, yes, and we should talk about that. So, Sarah, I was wondering, do you want me to read through questions and then start answering them? Would that?
Yeah, let's do that, and then we can kind of, there's some. I know you and I talked about some points we want to make, but I think we can weave those. I'm looking at the questions, and I think we can weave those in.
Okay. And some of them are more statements, but we can like address them. So we have one, I won't read the whole thing, but from Oregon. Oh my God. Oh my God. Sorry. It's like saying Tirana.
You've been here.
I know. So my poor newsletter list is gathering dust and cobwebs, which also house my guilt. So, okay, that's a really interesting statement. It's not a question. Thoughts on that? I can tell you personally, I had no guilt. I just started up again. That's all I did. I deleted all the people that I really thought, depending on your software, you can see how often they opened in the past, et cetera. In my case, they hadn't reconfirmed that they were okay with the GPDR thing, which I won't get into. And I just said, hey, I'm back. Here you go. Here's a couple of blog posts. That's all I wrote, I think. So you can just sort of say, hey, I'm going to start this up again. This is my plan. I'm going to do A, B, and C. Hope you stick around, and you might get unsubscribes because they'll be like, who is this person?
Yeah, they're like,
but you might be sticking around going, ooh, she's writing a letter. So that's what I would do to wipe off to dust off the cobwebs.
And I didn't really do that. I just started sending people emails every week. I with that said, I generally advise clients who are who've bought into the idea of doing an email. I generally advise them to say like, hey, to kind of make a little intro to say, like, hey, I know you haven't heard from me for a while. Just a reminder, I'm, Kath up in Saskatchewan, and you may know me from this, this, and this. I've committed to, emailing once a week now. I totally get it if that's too much for you, but I'd love it if you stuck around. So you can kind of frame it if you haven't communicated with your list in a while. I do think you can kind of do a little intro that is, but I honestly have to say, I just dove in and things were fine.
And people know how to,
I did have a fair amount of unsubscribes at first, and that was fine. Yeah. That was totally fine. And so
that's a mindset thing. You're gonna have to just go, okay, it's okay. They're gonna unsubscribe. That's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. And so I do, but it is. And there's also what I would recommend if your email marketing tool allows it. When someone signs up for your email, I recommend having it like some kind of welcome email that they get that says like, hey, here's what to expect. Because I think that's something that if you can frame like right from the get-go, like I send out an email every week, like this is the kind of information you'll get. If someone's like, oh God, that's not what I wanted, they can just kind of bounce right away. And I do get a small handful of people who do when they're like, oh, I just was hoping to get like a discount. And so that's I really encourage you, if your system does allow that, to do some kind of welcome email that immediately goes out to them and tells them what to expect. It's a little thing. And also, I think for me, that also frames the email newsletter as a community, because I even say that in mine. Yeah. And that's something that I think when we were talking about audience before we went live, Kath, that if you remember that your email list is very much a community, that you are speaking to an audience of people and that they actually can talk back to you. And I think that actually makes people feel a little more like part of something. And I think that's something that most humans want, is to feel part of something. Oh, I'm such a nerd.
Right. I love that. Okay, so we have another one. I began an email list about a year ago, and I haven't sent one email to my list. I like that. So I think you kind of covered that.
Valerie. Hi, Valerie.
Hi, Valerie. Like just what we suggested before. If you want to just sort of introduce yourself, say you're going to start this up, decide, give an expectation, maybe start with maybe once or twice a month. Yeah. I had always said once a month. And so I wanted to start doing more and not anger people. So I've sort of done these quick check-ins, like, hey, I just wanted to quickly tell you that.
You kind of eased into it, which I thought was a good strategy.
So I don't know, don't promise too much, but just say, these are the kinds of emails I'm going to be sending out starting now. And think about that.
And I actually, Valerie, I liked how you said you wanted to provide fun, actionable, bite-sized tips. I actually really like that positioning. I'm pretty verbose, and so it makes sense for me. But I actually subscribe to a handful of emails where someone will send like literally like 4 sentences, and I'm like, oh, that's great.
I love those emails. And
I love those emails too. Or they make me think about something, or I'm like, oh, I didn't know about that. That's so cool.
That is so cool. Yeah.
Because we're all so busy, and frankly, I read most of my emails on my phone, and having that kind of quick hit, that can feel really exciting. And I remember those emails. So, for me, it's probably would be weird, but I actually think it's a really great approach. And knowing you're a web designer, Valerie.
Yeah.
There's so many things you could do. I'm just like, you could send out one like have you, quick, check this thing, and then remind them to update the copyright line on their website. You know, like Like that kind of thing can be extreme.
Squarespace made this change because I think you said you're Squarespace. Squarespace made this change. Go check it out right now.
Yeah. Or hey, there's a new feature. If you're using this platform, there's a new feature that I'm really excited about. Here's the info. Check it out. Let me know if you have questions. So even making that invitation for people to write back to you, which I know sounds weird, like you might end up doing a ton of free work. But the reality is most people the people on your list are very respectful of your time.
Right. And when they write back ideas as well, like they'll ask a question that maybe you didn't think about because you're a designer. And
I've had a whole month worth of emails based on questions that people have written in reply to the previous week's emails. So that
saves on brain power.
Yeah. And so I definitely think there's so many good things that you can do. And I think focusing on making them really actionable and accessible and quick is a really smart strategy.
I subscribe to someone who writes an email every day, and his emails are super short. And I don't like all of them.
I subscribe to the same one, and I don't always read them.
Yeah, I don't read them all, but I know that if I open it, it's going to be short and quick, and I have time for it. So I won't recommend daily emails necessarily, but okay. Let's scroll.
I know people who do. If we talk about timing, we can talk.
Okay. So we've got someone in Germany. Hello. I've been designing sites. I have a newsletter sign up on my list, but have done nothing with it. Okay, so those 3 questions are we've kind of answered already, like how you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, and I think also sit down. This is what I would recommend, because I see there's a whole bunch of questions from people who are like, I have a list, but I've never done anything with it. Sit down, give yourself, set a timer. Kath is the queen of setting a timer. Set a timer for 15 minutes. Like, do not give yourself more time than that. Sit down and get a piece of paper and a pencil.
Or a pen.
I'm telling you, get away from the computer. And sit down and brainstorm. See if you can come up with a list of 12 topics.
Yeah.
Like and they can be, and this is the cool thing about newsletters, they can be really granular. So they don't need to be like, here is the answer to all the problems of the world. Like, you don't need to do that. It can be, very, very granular. Write out a list of just brain dump. And some of them might suck. That's fine. Totally fine. But just, but get 12. And I feel like that's a really magical number, because that's if you're thinking about doing every week, that's 3 months of topics. So
that's great.
So that's amazing.
If you're just doing once a month, that's 1 year of topics.
Yeah, and if you're doing if you're going to ease into it and doing once a month, that's a year of topics. So, and I like topic-based emails. And there's a bunch of reasons why. One, you can build on them and make them blog posts. Like, if you have one that's awesome, expand on it, make it a blog post, turn it into a pillar post, which will bring in organic.
Yeah.
It's repurposing, which will bring in traffic, which will get more people to sign up to your email list. So you see what we're trying to do is we're trying to create like a cycle, right? So you might have 1 or 2 that are really awesome, and so you can build on it. I also like, because it demonstrates the depth of your knowledge on the subject area. And even if you're kind of up here with high-level clients or high-level customers who, maybe know a whole lot, you are proving to them your knowledge. So granular stuff that really shows like, oh, they're not just kind of talking up here. They know the meat of this. And so that's a real good demonstration of that you are an expert or an authority. But just dump those down on a piece of paper. And what you'll start to see also is you'll probably see some themes. Right. And so if you're a planner and you want to have a really cohesive strategy, you can kind of think about how you can group some of those maybe in themes. Then you can also repurpose those ones that are in themes into, say, evergreen sequences to help build your list. So if you're getting a theme, I like repurposing stuff. I actually have houses for Meta. I have a series of 4 emails about email newsletters. And I have not posted those on my blog because those are going to go into an evergreen sequence for people who are like you guys and know they should be doing emails and don't know where to get started. So that's something else just to keep in mind. So you can do a lot of like just continuing to make this content live on, so to speak.
Live on. I like that.
Yeah.
So, okay. Sam and Chris and Brad, hi there. Hi guys. They also are looking for pointers. So those aren't really questions. So let's go further. Sarah, I see you. Oh my goodness. Now I got to go speedily. We have 8 different audiences with some overlap. Super complicated when it comes to email marketing. I send out 1 newsletter a week and then targeted emails and event-specific emails. That is, yes, that sounds complicated. Yeah, you'd have to tag and segment, right?
Oh, Chris, Rachel has a great question. I just posted this question. It was, where did it go? Sorry. I may have missed this, but what's the best balance providing content and providing news/sales? We have this on a list of info to make sure we share, actually. Kath, I think you and I are pretty simpatico on this particular topic. But so I was once told something by someone who worked in training retail employees for a large retail chain. And this is what she would always tell her trainees in retail. The best salesmen are teachers. And that has stuck with me, even though like what she was doing, retail is so different than what I do, but that has stuck with me for at least 10 years, is that the best salesmen are teachers. And I was like, that is just so for me, I am always leading with trying to educate people. So in my regular weekly email newsletter, I'm always trying to have at least something someone can take away that they've learned. However, I have in the footer of my email, I have all the ways that you can pay us for things. Because, like I literally say, did you enjoy this email? You may like working with us. And it has all the different stuff. If I have something happening that's time sensitive, so we last month did a live training on Squarespace SEO. I sent out a couple of special emails about that were outside of my normal Friday emails because it was live, it was time sensitive. I wanted to make sure that and I got some unsubscribes. Again, that's fine. In my email tool, I do have a way I can segment people out. It's like, if you don't want to receive any sales emails, click here. I think one person is in that segment. But so you do have that option to only get the educational emails, but it is a balance. And I think it does depend. I think that what a lot of people have the expectations is that they can send out a sales email every time they email, that people will open that email and click buy. And depending on your industry, oftentimes the average conversion rate in a sales email is about 1%. So you can see how if you set your expectations that every email is going to make a sale, you're going to be very frustrated. Yeah. So that's just something to keep in mind, is that it's really, I think, I know I think it was. So I'm not sure. I was like, I thought it was Kristen S. It was Rachel. So it does depend on, the tone of your business. People are not going to just open sales emails, but they will be more than happy if they've enjoyed your educational emails to open that sales email. So I would be first, if you don't have an email list, I would be first working on just trying to get people to open your freaking emails. Yeah. and Kristen, that's who I was hoping she would pop in, because she sends out a couple She mixes the two together every week, and that's fine. I think that's completely reasonable. It's just you don't. So I say, like, don't be Sephora. Like, Sephora can send out their sales emails pretty much every 3 days, and
people sign up for that. They literally
signed up. I highly doubt that anyone participating in this AMA has an audience that is signed up for the Sephora experience.
Yeah. Which is, you're signing up to be sold to. Like, there are certain places I've signed up because I want the discounts and I want to hear when the discounts are.
Right.
Otherwise, I want to be educated. So things like, it's good to look at sites like Canva or even Skillshare. They're constantly educating. They're constantly sending out emails that educate you on how to do the thing that is sort of aligned with their business, and it makes a big difference.
Canva is a great one. I recommend subscribing to some email lists and really starting to see what other people are doing. Canva is one that's really wonderful in their content marketing in general. I was telling Kath before we went live, I always feel like I need their pro tool, even though I don't actually need it.
Yeah.
Because their marketing is so good.
Yeah. I wanted to just add on to the sales thing. You don't always have to send out a sales email. You can do what Sarah does, which is that footer at the bottom where it's always there. And I've seen a couple of people do it and I liked it. It was like a little, I call it the quick note before we dive in. So people can skip it if they want. But I always welcome my new subscribers in that little quick note. It's a smaller font in the newsletter. And then I will add a link to something that's coming up, like that SEO workshop. That was a paid workshop. I'll just remind people that it exists. What I've discovered or noticed is that people click that link. That's one of the higher, that link gets clicked more often than not. I have
had that experience as well. That's very, and I didn't know that you had that same experience. I was surprised.
Yeah. And then people will go over. So the email isn't the sales email. It's an educational email, but I'll just say, hey, we're doing this, by the way. And people have clicked over to, and Sarah and I've talked, like, did someone come from me? And they have. So it's like, yay, it worked.
Yeah,
it's really email. It's like a little sentence saying, hey, we're doing this. Check it out.
And I have noticed a trend, and I don't know, because Kathy, you and I use different email systems. Right. I have noticed that I don't know, MailChimp provides this method, I can't remember. I have noticed that my click rate in emails, like link, because you can track how often your links are clicked, has gone up over time. And so what that tells me is it's like laying the foundation, building trust. Then people trust that you're not going to send them something crappy. I mean, really. And then they're more likely to buy something. I mean, honestly, how many times have you been burned by clicking like someone's cool new thing and you're like,
yeah, what was that? Yeah.
What was that? Yeah. And so I think that over time, I've seen that click through increase, and it's not fast. It's a very slow and steady. But I definitely see more people clicking the links in my footer. I see more people clicking things that are for sale. I see. So, and it's not just inexpensive things that people are clicking for information about. So that's something to keep in mind too. So even if your audience is primarily pretty high-end stuff, they will, as you start to build that trust, they will trust that your services are also legit.
All right. So I'm looking at the chat and you're looking at the ask a question. So Erin, she says, I never know what to write about. I'm always winging it. Now that you do a podcast, send that out every time.
Yeah, you send your podcast out.
And I listened to the podcast the other day and it was awesome.
I literally told someone in an email yesterday, I think Erin's answered all your questions in this podcast.
So just go there. Start with your podcast. Hey, we did here. Listen to the podcast. Here it is.
Well, and I actually want to say one more thing about that, because Erin has this really good content thing she's doing. She could easily have like a highlight from one of those from each episode that it becomes a new, like, that is like, in our most recent podcast, we talked about this. I wanted to expand on this point a little bit and talk a little bit more about that. So you can make a point of doing that for each one of your podcast episodes. And so then it does, it one, speeds podcast subscribers, but two, the people who listen to the podcast get a little extra. So it's like kind of nice. I'm always saying about how to create that circle, you know, to just keep that going. Because, you know, not everyone on your email list knows you. People have to be told something 12 times. They might not even realize you have a podcast, even though you've told them a bunch. So I don't know what you're doing with that regard, but I think that there's a lot. And also use my thing where sit down, write out 12 topics and see if you can cluster them into themes.
Yeah. Social media, I'm a lot on social media. So Kristen is on social media, so is Olivia. So just keep sending people back to your website with the sign up form, or just to the regular, like to say, hey, I've got whether you do it in stories or reels or on your grid, just tell people, I mean, I'm assuming Instagram, of course, it could be Twitter. Just keep sending people back to somewhere where they can sign up for your list if you're wanting to build your list.
Whenever I do an Instagram TV thing, which is my social media thing I'm trying right now, I always am like, in my video, I'm like, please, like, you know, like, I'm like, click the link in the bio to subscribe to the newsletter to hear about this stuff first.
And then they do.
And they do. I've actually finally started getting newsletter signups from Instagram, which is something, sort of a nut I've been trying to crack for a long time. And it's literally me saying,
go there. Yeah.
Click the link. And I always point. I don't know why I'm pointing.
Hey, whatever works. I've even noticed a couple have come from Instagram, which shocked me because I don't use it for business anymore. But the same thing. I moved the button to sign up for my list. Like, so when people click on the link that leads over to my website with the page that's dedicated to Instagram, the first link is sign up for the newsletter. And now people are signing up. So that's, you know, it's a small thing. These are little tweaks you make to get people on your list.
Relatively can add up. And that's something, if you're not using, a lot of people, I know a lot of people know about like the link in bio or Linktree or Smart Bio, all those services. You can also do something on your own website, like Kath has. But if you're not using some kind of like multiple link tool for your bio link in like Instagram in particular, just do it. Because I didn't do it for a long time because I was like, oh, that's so annoying to have to keep up with. And it does. People do click on different links depending on their interests. And then if you're on something like, if you're, say, I know a lot of folks are on LinkedIn because that's where their audience is. Remind people on LinkedIn on a regular basis. Like you can say like, hey, I just sent out my most recent newsletter, and every newsletter tool creates a link and be like, thought you'd want to check it out. Here, link. You know, I talked a little bit about X. Sign up to get this every month, week, day, whatever, here. And that's, and so it's literally on those social platforms. Again, it's that hand holding, like click this thing.
Yeah. And do this. Tell people what to do. Don't be embarrassed. Like sign up at this link, do this first, you know?
Yeah, and that's really, I think that's something that's really important. Just to remember that it's not like, you may know, like, of course I write that newsletter every week and everyone knows about it. I don't know about it.
Okay. So we have a few questions, Brad from Boss Display. I'm going to cluster a few. So what's a good alternative to MailChimp and why should we avoid it? Oh, we should keep that one short. Can you summarize GDPR? And then Kristen I use ActiveCampaign. So we've got some questions about email service providers. And okay, so let's start with those three. So GDPR, if you could just Google that, it's a European law and it's really complicated.
And California has a similar law.
Yeah. So
this is where it's sticky. Like we can't give you legal advice.
No.
The reality is, I would say, Kath, when you say the key is make sure you have a double opt-in.
Yeah.
So that means someone subscribes and they have to confirm.
Yeah. So they don't
Um,
subscribe, they don't put their email in a thing and automatically they're on your list. They get the email, or sorry, they give you the email, and then they have to actually go to their inbox
they say,
and click.
yes, I really do.
Yeah.
The other thing is, don't say, there are some services out there where you can literally buy mailing lists and then just start emailing people. Please do not do that. And I say that not because I think any of you would, but because I have been surprised at how often this advice has been given to people who simply don't know that that's not, that you're going to get in some trouble. And right now we've got all of Europe who you will get in trouble with, and think you won't get in trouble because you're not in Europe. Ha ha ha. Guess what? It applies to anytime you email someone in Europe.
Yeah.
And then and then now we've got California. So again, anytime you email someone in California, so just be really smart. Respect people's inboxes.
Yeah, and make it easy for them to unsubscribe. But yeah, look it up. Definitely look it up. And if you are a big enough business that has a lawyer, maybe have them look through it so that they can give you really good advice on that. All right, so we only have about 20 minutes, I think. So very quickly, we're in terms of the tech tools. I wrote some notes like about MailChimp, ActiveCampaign, ConvertKit, Flowdesk, etc. The big advice is, if you don't have a system yet, check out all the demos, get in touch with customer service and say, this is what I want to be able to do. Can I do it with yours?
Yeah. Is this possible?
What's your budget? You might have to start small, like MailerLite, one of those smaller ones. Know your goals and audience. So that's part of that brainstorming stuff. And once you pick a system and you're comfortable with it and it seems to be working well, write out like a standard operating procedure, all the steps that you need to take, especially if you're only doing it once a month. So it's easy to get back into it, right? Because that can be a real thing that holds you back, is like, oh, I can't remember how to do anything. But when you're deciding on a system, because it's hard to, because I don't know all the systems, when you're deciding on an email service provider, like really get in touch with customer service and bug them for and watch the demos and see if you like how it works. Because ultimately, they all kind of end up doing the same thing, which is getting.
Yeah, I mean, they do. And I'm going to go ahead and drop in the chat a link to 3 of my articles or newsletters I wrote about this, picking a newsletter tool. I personally use ConvertKit and I love it. It is, for some people, they don't like it because it feels very simplistic. That's actually why I love it. The free tool I recommend to people right now tends to be MailerLite, because I do find that it's very easy for newbies to say, build a sequence, which was another question we had, was what is a sequence? And I'll answer that in just a second. So it's very easy if you've never done any kind of automation or sequence type work. I do find that it's pretty easy for people. And if you're looking for something free, it's a really good choice. I think that stuff is a little harder to get around with MailChimp.
Yeah. Yeah, MailChimp used to be free to do a basic automation, which is part of what sequencing is. So, but now you have to pay for that. So I actually pay the lowest tier, which is totally fine. Correct me if I'm wrong, but a sequence is basically someone signs up, and then it's sort of like an if-then thing. So if they, they signed up now, and then 1 day later they get another email, and then 4 days later they get another email, and so you've set it up. And it might not be with every person that signs up for your newsletter. It might depend on if they sign up for a specific thing. So you see that a lot, like when you, especially in the online marketing, if you pick someone who's like one of these online marketers, you're going to notice that you sign up for their email. I guarantee the next day you're going to get an email. 3 days later you'll get one,
and on day 5 you're going to get the sales page. You're going to get the sale.
So yeah, you're going to get the big sales.
3 days later, if you don't buy the thing, you'll get a did I say something wrong, your name. And I mean, sorry, I've subscribed to a lot of these. But really what it is, I have a few that I have on my site, and They all are tied to things that people have downloaded. And I'm a huge fan of what I call the 5-page guide or the mini ebook as a quote lead magnet. And I have an article on my website about lead magnets. You can, if you just go to my website and type in lead magnet, you can find it. And I have a 5-page guide for a few things. I have one for website audits. I have one that's a specific industry. And I have one that's actually just kind of like things you need to know about a website, and it's 5 big points. So I like those mini ebooks because one, I think that they're pretty easy to put together. I know people are like 5 pages, but it's like, it's a formula and a format that I just repeat over and over again. But then what I do is I have an evergreen sequence that the people who download that get, and they get, and the reason I like it is I have it then over 5 days, they get information about topic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all synced up to that 5-page guide. So it's like I build on the info they got in that sequence. And so any someone downloads one of those guides, they get, the next day they get, email 1, then email 2, and it goes out every 24 hours. And during the time when they're getting those emails, they do not get my regular Friday email. So, because I don't want to have them like get hit with me twice, because that's obnoxious. So it's an interesting tool. I would say it's like advanced email newslettering, but you can do some really, when we ran our, we did a challenge a couple months ago on challenging people to write a pillar post on their website. And that was a 14-day challenge. And everyone in that challenge we built an evergreen sequence that when they joined the challenge, they first got a welcome email, and then that was paused until the day this challenge started. And then the day the challenge started, actually it was the day before the challenge started. The day before the challenge started, they got a like, remember you signed up for this thing. 2 people unsubscribed. which is really funny. And then for 14 days, each day they got an action to do. And I know we have some questions about list building. I think we added a fair amount of people, even though we didn't really publicize that too much outside of our own list and our really narrow audience. We had a fair amount of additional, about 30% of those people were new to my list.
Right.
So that worked really well.
Some might have come from me, but some might have come from outside through Instagram or through wherever they've heard about it.
Yeah. And it was a really interesting, we're going to do that again, because it was also, we saw people actually do the thing that we wanted them to do. They did it over the course of 14 days, and they successfully completed the task because we broke it down really into narrow bits. They did the task and they succeeded. And that's what I want to see. I want to see people see the power of doing these things that we know work. And so that was a really cool evergreen sequence to do. So you can do, I even know people who literally put people in the first weekly email they wrote and then like sequence them like through everything they've ever written. I think that's massively complicated. But there's lots of things you can do with you can, and I know Roxanne asked this question, and I know Roxanne. So, if Roxanne, I think, has her art coaching business on pause right now, but she could theoretically do an evergreen sequence that was a week of business tips for artists. Things that like, she could talk about, up your pricing on your work. Make sure you have, next one could be like, hang your artwork like a pro, so she could do like a 5-day sequence of like educational. I've known Roxanne for years. I know the stuff that drives her crazy. Educational stuff that's high value to these people. And so they would be like, oh, she's going to give me some tough love. I want to sign up for a coaching session.
Actually, those are great topics for newsletters, things that drive you crazy in your, All right. So Kristen was asking, does anyone do giveaways for signing up for a mailing list or other incentives? Sarah, I know that you sometimes give a coupon code or offer one, right? And sometimes I think you even have it on your contact you page, like,
Oh yeah.
People, yeah.
Oh yeah. I have a discount code. If someone signs up for my newsletter, they get sent a discount code for a strategy session. most of the people who do their first strategy session with me either sign up for that or they're on my list and use the discount code that's for email list subscribers. And I am thrilled with that. I think that's great. And it's been very effective. And to me, it's a really good way also of just saying thank you to people for signing up for my list. So
for some reason, I thought it was on your contact page, like people who sign up for my list get this, but I'm not seeing it right away. It's later. It's later down as
a time.
Yeah.
So,
so this brings up, okay, this is from Rachel. This brings up something interesting. I sponsored a professional conference. 800 participants agreed for their email to be shared with me, but do I just email them, but not through my service? And what's the best thing to say?
Oh, okay. That is a really interesting question because that's a pretty common thing. And and this is my understanding, again, I am not a lawyer. So I want to be, and that is a very common thing at conferences, where part of that deal is that people get the sponsors get the email addresses. And this is what I would do to just ensure that I am operating with integrity is I would actually create a segment of those participants in my email marketing tool and call them like, conference attendees. And I would actually send out an email, sort of a friendly welcome email. Maybe if you have some resources on your website, just introduce yourself and give them the opportunity to unsubscribe. Because I think that's very crucial, obviously, and that should be in the footer of every email anyway. But I would definitely send a targeted email. It's like, we were thrilled to sponsor X conference. We hope you enjoy it. Just something that's friendly and warm. I think that's really, I think that's probably the way to handle it. Because technically they did give permission, but to me it's a real gray area because there's some language around explicit permission. Mm-hmm. When you say, Kath? Yeah, I would cover my butt on that.
Yeah. All right.
Like Kath and I don't share email subscribers back and forth.
No, we don't. Like I'll tell people to go subscribe to Sarah and vice versa, but I would never email her list without them actually coming over to me and subscribing. And that has happened. People are like, oh yeah, Sarah sent me over here. So
yeah.
Can we talk about consistency? I think this is from Olivia. Can we talk about consistency? Should I be newslettering once a week on the same day? If I miss a week, does that mess things up? I've become more consistent. I was always Tuesday once a month. And so now whenever I send out an email, it's basically on a Tuesday. But sometimes I'm wrong with the time. But I know, Sarah, you're very consistent. I think that does make a difference. In my experience, consistent makes a big difference. So I don't think you have to do once a week. And Olivia, I know your newsletters are beautifully designed as well, so they take more time. And because I get her newsletters, they're absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. I mean, they truly are. And so but I would be consistent. So if it's every other week on Tuesday, send it every other week on Tuesday. Yeah. I will say it sort of becomes a weird brain thing if you have it on a schedule, because last week I was off work and it was Thursday, but I had lost track of the days because, life is weird right now. And so I was sitting there watching basketball and I was like, I didn't schedule my email newsletter. I had written it. But I did not. I forgot to schedule it because I wanted to add a couple links and I hadn't done that yet. So it was like 11:30 at night and I'm like, schedule. So it does get a little I was like, I can't not send that out. Like, I can't have it be late. It was a total panic mode thing. And my husband thought I was out of my mind because I'm like on my laptop. I'm like, I only have 2% battery. And I was going really fast. I gotta send it now.
Yeah, so, it was not one of my finer moments, I have to say. So
But I do think I expect to hear from, I mean, I know Sarah, but I think people are waiting. Like I have a friend who subscribes to Sarah's newsletter, and he's like, oh, I look forward to it every Friday. So I do think, this is Sean. So I do think that, I think if you're consistent, some of your newsletter subscribers are going to be waiting for it. I also think there's absolutely nothing wrong with saying to them, hey, I'm going on holiday. I won't be writing my email for 2 weeks. And give them a heads.
I've seen people do that. And that's what I actually think. If you are going to be on vacation and you've established a schedule, just let them know.
Yeah.
Because they do ask if you miss a week.
Yes. We have, I think, one last question here, because the other ones I recognize from the chat, but the one is, can you say more about point of view? So we can maybe answer that really quickly.
I have a lot to say about that. And I actually have a few newsletter archives I can post in the chat too. And we do send out a wrap-up email after these AMAs that goes through our Crowdcast software. And I'll try to remember to include some of these links as well. That'll be later today.
Yeah,
but
right. I will do it. I have to do a standard procedure on this, a roundup of links and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really believe, and this is one of my hills I'll die on, that you are better off having a very clear perspective on your topic than trying to be all things to all people. Will you alienate some people? Sure. Does it matter? Not unless you're being a jerk.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm being really frank here because it's something I really feel is I think that I will tell you I have a more engaged list and a better list that clicks on more links and replies to more emails, the more really clear I am with where I'm coming from. Mm-hmm. And when I try to be delicate about things, I don't have that engagement.
Yeah. And that's
something you haven't. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm going to say I agree. Like
and
ever since I did that. If
you haven't sat down and written out what's my big mission? And so that's not your unique selling position. That's not any of that. That is something sort of internal for you. What is your big mission? Because I think we all have one, and it's not selling more stuff. Like obviously you need to sell stuff in order to, pay your bills and live well. But you also are most likely trying to do something. Like I know I saw one of the people in the chat is doing websites for woman-owned small businesses. And I bet you have a real reason why that matters to you, why that's your audience. And so that is at the core of your mission, even if you haven't thought it out. And so for me, it's really, I want to show people that there's a better way to market their business with authenticity and integrity. Like when it comes down to it, like, sure, I want people to buy, a website package. Sure, I want people to book a consulting package. Yes, obviously. But I believe that the path to get them to do that is to get them to understand that there's a better way to market their business. And so that's something that's really important to me. And Kath, I know you feel really strongly about like empowering and educating people so that they can own their marketing. I know that's very important to you.
So. Yeah, and simplifying. Like I just don't
love to simplify.
Get it out there and be brave and don't get fussy about the little things that are going to hold you back from just like you really believe in just getting it done and doing it effectively and efficiently and not getting in your own way. And so that's something I think when you do really think about your point of view, think about what is my mission? Like, and that is something like nonprofits get encouraged to think about that all the time, you know, but those of us who are in business, we don't get that info. Aren't encouraged to think about that. And I think that's actually a really crucial step. And I think I actually have a newsletter archive about that too. I think it's we've gone over by 3 minutes, so we probably, because I know the software is
thanks for hanging out with us.
Yes, thank you. We'll be in touch soon.
Yeah, and I was going to say we are doing these every month. We haven't selected the topic for next month yet, but if there is an Ask Me Anything you're interested in hearing stuff about, obviously you are either probably on my list or on Cass list, so just send us, so you have our contact info. So just send us an email and with a suggestion, because we are really, really committed to this, because this has been a really fun experience for me, and we're really hoping that it can help people get some good info. So get in touch.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.